Chuck, I tell you all the time, if Sky or ESPN come calling, like you'll be sitting here with somebody else calling it two up front. And ain't nothing against you, my boy. It's just like this is what is out there, and I'll be there. Like, just want to shout out my boy Chuck, holding it down, doing his thing.
See, traitor.
Ain't a guy.
Traitor.
Happy Easter. Hope you all had a blessed Good Friday, Easter Saturday, and Resurrection Sunday. Welcome to Two Up Front. We come back as well. My name is Jay, and as always, I'm with Chuck. Chuck, what up, what up?
All good, man. Nongile. So I did the whole run, like from the Friday to the Sunday. Yeah, no, I'm satisfied.
It's good to hear. Let's get into some sports, because that never rests. And Champions League happened this weekend. Of course, both Mamelodi Sundowns and Orlando Pirates were in action against Egyptian sides. I don't even know why you'd have both of them playing on the same day against teams from the same country. Like, one of these matches should have started in Egypt. But anyway, here we are. And Chuck, beginning with the Sundowns game, right? Sundowns against Ahly. That one ended 0-0 in a not-so-convincing performance from Sundowns. And the coach, Miguel Cardoso, suggests that maybe what Sundowns needed, a little extra 20% would have come from the crowd, saying that Loftus is a beautiful stadium, and it's a pity to see it not full filled to capacity. And that is something that would have helped. Do you think fair or foul for Miguel Cardoso to suggest that the Sundowns fans could have done better in filling up the stadium?
Foul, because it's Easter weekend. I mean, people are all over the country and they're thinking and doing other things that are not football related. So I think, unfortunately, the calendar dates clashed. I think if it was a week prior, a week after, maybe his call would have fallen on ears that were necessarily guilty of not participating. But I think it's a crazy time during that Easter period. But outside of that, Jay, I think it's a fair enough call, because I've seen Lucas Morepe Stadium filled to capacity when Sundowns were playing.
Wait, so you're saying it's fair or foul?
I said because of the weekend, I think it's foul, because bazobuya pabantu. But if we take that out of the equation and just generally look at the tie, I've seen Loftus when Sundowns beat Ahly 5-0. It was packed to capacity, meaning that the people are there. The people can come out and fill up Loftus Stadium. So because there's a precedent, number one, and number two, it is a big tie where people have previously come through and shown up. When you played Esperance last season, I think it was almost close to capacity when Sundowns couldn't go over the line when they drew that game. So the numbers suggest that people can come through and fill up that stadium. Also because, Jay, if you think about, well, my personal preference is the songs and the drum. I say Sundowns. That's different. The songs that are sung maybe only rivaled by Bloemfontein Celtic. Obviously, you've got Orlando and the noise, right, and just how it echoes around the entire arena and the feeling of that, right. But in terms of a good time and just understand that we're here to support Mamelodi Sundowns, because they're singing throughout the entire game. There are people who are not even watching the game, because their job is to rev up and rile out the crowd and make sure that the song and dance just keeps going on. And if you have that, I think it's a festive atmosphere. It's one that says to Sundowns players that we're behind you all the way. I mean, even with half the stadium full, those guys will still be present. Those guys will still play that song. But it's one thing if it's like 20,000 versus 50,000 who are singing. So I do understand that, Jay, because people have come in. There have been incentives like if you're wearing a yellow jersey, you can come in for free, or it's only 10 Rand to come in, just to make sure that Loftus is full, right? And Jay, I understand that generally speaking, because what he contrasted was the fact that if you go to Algeria, to Tunis, and where they're actually going to go in Cairo, the stadium's going to be packed. You're going to see Tifos, you're going to see, like when I was watching Paris against MC Algiers, there was one section that was just dressed in white, one section that was dressed in black. I was like, so much coordination, so much effort for this particular game. It didn't help them, because that's the tie that they lost. But nonetheless, they were there in support, right? And when you look at the fact that we don't tend to fill up our stadiums all the time. Loftus doesn't tend to be filled up all the time, or Lucas Morepe and Sundowns go there. But in certain cases, in certain occasions, as the fans, you need to understand that, guys, this is a critical part of this critical phase in the season. This is a big tie. We need everyone to be there, all hands on deck kind of a thing, right? And so for that reason, I think it's a fair call to say, guys, yeah, maybe you're not there against Makis. Maybe you're not there against Chiefs in the early game. Actually, you were there against Chiefs when there wasn't much on the line, because Sundowns have a bit of a window where maybe if they lose the game against Chiefs, they can still contend for the league. Sundowns can lose those points, but because it's Chiefs and it's a big game, fans turn out. Yes, the other part is true that some of them are Chiefs fans as well, which equates to why the stadium is full. But when there are big games or when there's something that is big related to Mamelodi Sundowns, the fans turn up. So I think, Jay, it's a fair cry to say that I've been to stadiums as the coach. I've been to stadiums where Sundowns has played and it's been full. Where are you now? And so I think Sundowns needed that extra man. And I think Cardoso's comments are fair.
The question you're asking, where are you now? Like,
Yeah.
in the past, I've been critical of Sundowns fans because Maktiwa Chuck, wear a yellow shirt, free entrance. It's over capacity. That game you're referring to against Ahly, it was over capacity. Like where we were sitting, there were people who were blocking the tunnel, right, in and out. And because, as I'm saying, there were more people than the stadium could hold. And that's because people were, like, it was a free entrance. Whereas when Sundowns fans have been asked to buy tickets previously, those very same people, now they don't. And what I have called for is, rather than making it for free, because I don't like the security detail around that. There's absolutely none whatsoever. At some point when you walk around the stadium, you can see people are coming in and out, and some people are not even there to watch the match, and even that mandate of you need to be wearing yellow, that's out the window as well. So I want control in terms of capacity. And my whole thing is because, ironically, there are more people than the stadium can hold. So in order to try combat that, to control that, you need to be issuing tickets. And not in the way that Sundowns have done it, like, saloon, like, we're not from Pretoria, I don't even know where that is. And how do you expect like 50,000 people to go to like 5 locations within the city? Again, that doesn't make any sense. And my suggestion was you keep it the same way as you do normal games, right? Whether the tickets are free or they priced at a very low price, do that. Even if they're free, you say you come there to the counter and you say, or whether it's online, you get your tickets. And when you've reached capacity, you've reached capacity. And then you've got a full crowd and happy days. Everybody who needs to be inside will produce a ticket. And what Sundowns did for this match is that they charged tickets at 20 Rand, right? Where normally tickets go for 40, 60 Rand, 100 Rand for the big games. This is the cheapest ticket going around for a Sundowns match. And that was a victory in my mind in terms of the way I want them to do it, because you are still selling tickets. You're going to control into the number of people who come to the stadium. But also you are making it accessible to those people who, for whatever reasons, their financial situations, are able to come when it's free versus when it is priced at the normal prices. And if it was any other time, Chuck, and those things were met on the Sundowns side, I would be disappointed as well. But the fact is, it was Easter weekend, Loftus Stadium is situated in Pretoria, which is in Gauteng, and if you are out there, you're not from South Africa, and don't know much about Gauteng, it is a migrant town. In terms of the people who have settled in this province, there's still a large majority who have amakaya somewhere else. And when you have long weekends, especially Christmas and Easter time, they leave. I mean, you were driving around this weekend, and if you go out on the roads in Joburg or Pretoria on those highways, nothing like what you experience on normal days, right? Because people are gone. Yep. So that's number one. Like, abantu bebangeko. And those who were maybe around, again, it's Easter time. Whether they went to church or they were at home or they went to Groove, there's so much happening in that weekend that it's not fair as a result. And that's why I'd say it's foul to expect a full crowd, like to expect that Loftus will be 50,000 deep, But the other thing, Chuck, is the fact that because of what happened against Esperance, right?
Yeah.
There was a whole section that was cordoned off. And you could see it on the broadcast, and the people who were at the stadium said the same thing, that you just weren't allowed to go there because they were trying to separate the fans of Sundowns and the fans of Ahly, who were in that section that we tend to see the away fans sitting in, right? So that was never going to have any people. So it wasn't a matter of people weren't there to occupy that space. And generally speaking, under all those conditions, I honestly do think that the turnout was relatively good. Also, Chuck, C57. Doesn't this coach know C57? Like Usfunani, like don't you know? Don't you know? But on the real, I do think the conditions of the date and everything around those festivities, as well as the fact that there was a part of the stadium that just couldn't be filled. And then when you looked at how many people were in the stadium, I think that was as much as you could expect. So as a result, I'd say it's a little foul from Miguel Cardoso.
All right, but if you look at the actual tie, right, Sundowns came close on a number of occasions. They were as good as they could possibly get against an Ahly side, but couldn't get the win, right? And so when Miguel Cardoso throws in Themba Zwane, his first game back after an extended period out because of injury. And yeah, he did look a bit rusty here and there, but he did give them the spark as well, because here comes their captain, here comes their talisman. And the question is this, Jay, looking at the second leg, do you think that's who you go to in terms of here's your game winner? Do you put your money on Themba Zwane winning you the tie? How big is Mshishi going into the second leg?
First of all, how good is it to see Themba Zwane back on a football pitch? My goodness, it has been months. It has been probably like the equivalent of half a year without seeing Themba Zwane play, at least for Sundowns, because he hasn't turned up for Sundowns, I believe, since September, and we're in April now, you know. And Sundowns, they did a good job of teasing the return of Themba Zwane. It was like a movie, Chuck, a big movie that's gonna come out, and trailers were dropping because there's the extension to his contract, and then you see him being posted on social media, and the suggestion was, okay, he's gonna play, you know, and then when he showed up on the sideline, you hear the crowd singing Themba Zwane, you know, and he gets the captain's armband, he's back on the field, and as I'm saying, it was a moment to savor, you know, in terms of one of the all-time greats in South African football. In terms of his performance, and as a result, in terms of what I expect, like, will he be the proverbial messiah? Is he coming to save Sundowns when they go to Egypt? I think it's a lot to put on his shoulders, coming back from injury, and the kind of injuries coming back from in a year where he turns 36. I don't know what Themba Zwane is going to look like, right? One of the things that has marked his career thus far, in his time in his peak at Sundowns, is that that dude has been like super fit. And when you've spoken to people who know him, Themba Zwane goes on 20-kilometer jogs for fun. You know, he takes the game very seriously. And even like people who've coached him, people who've worked with him, they say that about him. Like, yes, Themba Zwane ushishiliza abantu ngobuso pants, but what enables that and what makes him so great is the fact that he's always available. And the reason he's always available is because he takes care of himself so well. And he's been an Iron Man of sorts, you know. But the thing is, Father Time does catch up with everybody, and Themba Zwane has never suffered an injury like the one that he did, and I'm actually quite shocked to see him back so quick. I thought he was going to be out for the rest of the season, which goes to maybe suggest that Zwane might be a different kind of athlete in terms of his recovery and in terms of what he looks like at the stage of his career. Also, we see it in Europe, and it has trickled down to South Africa, especially amongst the big clubs, the involvement of sports science. And you would know that Sundowns and their medical team have done everything. They've exhausted every avenue to make sure that he's back on the pitch as well as he can be. That is still to be seen, though. And to ask him, Chuck, that after a cameo appearance in the first leg of a Champions League semi-final against Ahly, and then to go to Cairo and be the difference maker, it's a lot to ask. Yeah. And it's Themba Zwane, right? And Themba Zwane, in my eyes, is the PSL GOAT. He's the greatest player in PSL history. I'm not saying the greatest South African player ever, but particularly in terms of longevity, being in the league, and everything is done in the league. And if there is a guy who you can look to and say, come and do the job, it would be that guy. But the combination of the fact that he's coming back from a horrific injury at the age that he finds himself in, and the only game time there is to speak about, as I'm saying, is a 15-minute cameo in the first leg, just the week before he is supposed to then, supposedly, maybe in the eyes of some fans, have to go to Cairo and work miracles. He can. Like, I believe in Shikabala with everything I am, but I think you shouldn't be looking at him or to him to do that. The other players who have been there, they should carry that load.
I mean, obviously, Marie Sundowns fans, the team, and everyone related is happy, and so is anyone or anyone and everyone involved with Bafana Bafana as well, right? But with those two teams, Jay, it's somewhat a situation where we've gone on and done okay without you, you know, and that's the thing that he has to now catch up to in terms of I have to make my mark on the team and still be still be Themba Zwane, Shikabala, and not just be another passenger in the team. And that's the question, right? Can he be not just another passenger in the team and do something great? And yeah, maybe he can come back and be like Bukayo Saka. We're like, that's who we've been missing the whole time, and that's what he gives to the team. But I don't know if it's that easy because, I mean, it was a tall order, right? Arsenal, Real Madrid, Sundowns, Ahly, that they're both perennial winners of those continental competitions.
And Saka managed like 2 Premier League games before,
which is very different
before coming back against Real Madrid, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, you want it to be fairy tale like that. Like when Kevin De Bruyne came on last season, I think came on with a goal and assist. You're like, that's what we were missing. You wish it was like that, but on Saturday, it didn't quite look like that's the impact that he had, and so you wonder going forward into the other big games beyond Allah, can he do that for Sundowns? And obviously, this is the one that you want to look at because this is the one that's key because it gets you into the final. But yeah, I agree with you that it can't all just be on him. Give him another cameo role, or maybe you can start him and then say to him, but at the end of the first half, you're going to be off, but give us your best. Because what he has said, I think, in a previous podcast, that he's learned from Messi and picked up the fact that you don't have to run. You don't have to be the 20K Zwane your entire career. At some point, you have to pick your moments, when to run, when to walk around, when to scan, and preserve your energy and use it at the right time. And so I think that's testament to his longevity, that at key moments, Zwane is there because he's scanning, he's learning about the condition of the game, where to be, where not to be. And so if that mind is still switched on, because also along with physical and physical fitness, that mental side of the game, right? Are you match ready? Are you match sharp? Can you read the things that are happening in the game? And from the displays on Sunday, he wants the ball, he wants to be active, he wants to play a part in Sundowns winning, which means that the hunger and the will is there. Just a matter of has everything aligned in terms of your body and your mind and the moment. Can you show up on the big games, of which more often than not he has? So I agree with you, Jay, that I don't think look to Themba Zwane to win you the game, but he can still provide, but we don't rule him out as well because he can provide the magic, he can be decisive in those moments. But I think that team is still good enough. It's still an open tie. As much as Ahly will get the advantage playing at home, Sundowns are still a big team, a team to be feared. So I think, Jay, I don't think that's where you put your hopes on. I don't think you put your hopes on Themba Zwane. I think you look at someone who's performed like a Reina, someone who's performed like a Ribeiro, and you're like, you're like, guys, you guys have proven to be hot for more often than not in this season. So you guys, more likely than not, are going to be hot or give us something in the game. You're Chalulile as well, who's come good, I think, most latterly. You look at those people as options to winning the game, not Themba Zwane. But I think you don't rule out the fact that there could be magic.
Anyone can do it. It's Shika.
Yeah.
If anyone can do it, it's Themba Zwane. And you know what, Nechak? Based on what I saw in the performance from Sundowns, there was no shoe shine. There was no piano. It was the closest thing I can describe Sundowns is playing mud football. And where Themba Zwane could be critical is that he injects his game into the game. That what Sundowns look like they need, and they need it in the first leg, and they're going to need in the second leg, is for him to come and dance. Because in terms of structurally and tactically, how they went about that match against Ahly, they struggled and they couldn't play, Chuck. Like they just weren't playing. And whether that is the case or not, the thing about Themba Zwane, as I'm saying, he has his game. This is why Themba Zwane individually is as great a player as he is, right? It does not matter what football is being played. He plays football. Like you in the stadium, it doesn't matter whether you support Sundowns or not. You'll hear when Themba Zwane starts doing his thing that or and I feel as though, Chuck, what he can do is inspire that, right? In terms of he's going to inject the tempo, and that's the thing we're trying to figure out. Like, does he have the legs? Does he have physically within him to go and do that? Because if he can, I think it's gonna bring everybody else back to life. Even if he's not quite the guy who's gonna carry the performance where he's giving the assist or he's scoring the goal to win the game for Sundowns. But the fact that he's going to give you the ball, he's going to demand it back, he's going to run into space and he's going to say, give it back. And he's going to expect for you as well to do likewise, right? And if the skipper and your talisman and the legend that he is doing that, the hope or the idea is that there's going to be a response. That beyond even tactics, ibola la Themba Zwane and Nalil afuna ukuthi udlale naye is going to be something that might come to the core. And that might be the spark that Sundowns, based on that first leg, desperately need.
Jay, when you speak about udlala ibola, like I think it's that thing. When I would describe it, he makes football simple. Like he gives you the ball and he runs to a place where you can't mess up the chance. You can't mess up the pass back because I've made it so simple for you. You don't have to go past anyone. Let's just play a 1-2 and it becomes easy like that, right? And also tactically, Jay, the fact that Ahly will have to look at two of their talismen on the pitch, not just focus on Ribeiro and try to close them down. You also have to then deal with Umshishi as well. When they recycle the ball, if they're not getting any penetration, it doesn't have to go as far as maybe Mokoena, but Themba is there in the 10 because he's very good and very responsible with the ball. So he gives them that extra dimension, but also be wary because he's just come back. He's only played 15 minutes and a lot of pressure.
Because my fear, right, on the other side of that is that uzulimal. You put too much on him too soon. Nizomlimaza foot, and that is going to be catastrophic.
Yeah.
So I hope that doesn't happen. On Orlando Pirates side, another 0-0. It was Easter eggs galore this weekend. Maqanda ngapha, maqanda ngalena. And there were no goals, right, Chuck? Meaning that none of the strikers delivered quite to what you would think is their first job or not. And Mabasa started the game against Pyramids, but then Makgopa came off the bench to finish that game. And we've seen them interchange in the Pirates side this entire season. And Pirates fans are divided in terms of, should it be Mabasa? Was he supposed to be taken off? Should it be Makgopa? Should he have started the match? And I'll ask you the question, Chuck. When you compare the two strikers that Orlando Pirates have, both of them are nationally capped, right? You've got Mabasa with 13 goals and 39 appearances this season. You've got Makgopa with 8 goals in 35 games this season. One of them, Mabasa, is more a box predator. And the other one, Makgopa, is, he links up the play as well. Who do you think is best suited for Orlando Pirates going into that second leg and with everything that's still in front of Orlando Pirates possibly this season and beyond? Mabasa or Makgopa?
I think you've made it easy by saying this second leg specifically. And I say Makgopa because I've seen Ribeiro in games where I'm like, why are you starting with Makgopa? In the tight games, where it's the semis or in the finals, where we're playing away, Makgopa's been the guy that he's gone to more often than not. And then it's yielded fruit. And I say that because, Jay, the fans are divided because their deficiencies are so glaring and they're so different because, as you said,
and
one
they
is
are
very
so
good.
different, right?
Because
really the one lacks in where the other one is strong, and then where the other one is strong, the other one lacks.
That's why so many times when you're watching Pirates, you're like, if only there was Makgopa, it would have worked out better. But then Makgopa comes and you're like, if only there was Mabasa, because you would fluff a chance. And that's why you'd be divided, because in different situations, they do things very, very, very differently. Because Mabasa won't have first touch, but given the ball in the box, he'll score. And then Makgopa gets into the box and you're like, nah, man, that's not how a striker makes contact with the ball. How are you going to score? Or he doesn't have that confidence to take the chance on himself. And then he passes the ball. You're like, but you're the striker, dude. We're looking for you to give us the goals. So they're very, very, very on different ends of the spectrum, very different. But going to the second leg, Jay, I think when things are tight, because we're going to have to be a bit more cautious. I liked how Pyramids came to play as well, right? They were disciplined when it comes to defensive work, but they came to play. Hence, their 2 goals that were ruled out by offside. The Fiston Mayelo one, and you see them pouncing on mistakes as well. So they came to play, right? So you're thinking to yourself, because it's a conundrum, right? It's not that straightforward. When they're at home, they're going to play their football. They're not going to be as cagey or as disciplined. Or they don't need to be as disciplined as they were against Pirates at FNB, which plays into Pirates' hands, because if you give them an open game, that's where they also flourish. And so you think to yourself, if we're going to have openings and create chances, you want to give it to Mabasa. But if the game is going to be tight, and if we're going to play it like we did MC Algiers, like we did, who do you play before Algiers? But when we're playing games away, when we try to be defensively astute and we're closing shop at the back, we tend to go with Makgopa. So I think what we were trying to do, Jay, in this game, especially because of what we've seen, FNB, we're going to try to be sound. We're not going to try to chase the game unless the game requires us to do so. So I think for me, Makgopa is the one who's going to give us those options, because in a game where I think East Delhi's had, they've since proven to be better than that, but they were high-flying in the early part of the season, getting to the MTN8 final. They looked very dangerous, but Makgopa was still the guy that Rivera went with, So I think, Jay, when you look at that game that we won against Sundowns, when chances were that we were the underdogs in that game, Makgopa started because that was going to be a tough game yet again. So in this one, Jay, I choose Makgopa.
I didn't expect that, Chuck.
Also because of work rate, Jay. Also because of work rate, because there's a chance that was crossed by Uhoto. Makgopa, I think Makgopa would have slid in. I don't know if he would have made contact, but he would have read the situation much better, because it goes in line with hard work. Whereas Mabasa, I think, was like, dude, that pass is a bit too far. He didn't bother himself to slide in for that chance. So in a tight and cagey game, Jay, I think Makgopa. Look, I know you didn't expect that, because I tend to lean towards Mabasa because he's the more talented striker in terms of finishing, but I've learned via Rivera that in the tight games, in the games that I think to myself, why don't we get a genuine striker? Makgopa somehow in some way has worked out.
I need my striker to score. I always need my striker to score, but it's nuanced, right? I'd go with Mabasa, just because, he's the better goal scorer, and in the same way that the first duty of defenders for me is to defend. Like, okay, it's great that you're comfortable with the ball at your feet, you can play out, you can switch, but you can't defend. So your reliability, and like, you're a defender, like, I need you to be able to do that. Same thing with strikers. Yes, if you're well-rounded, all the better, right? But I need you to do your first estate at a level which is what you are paid to do. Like, I need you to score goals if you're my striker, and that's why I'd go with Mabasa. But I do say that it is nuanced, because think about the Pirates win against Sundowns and the 2 goals scored by Urel. The reason Urel finds himself in those positions where he's able to score those goals is because Makgopa's playing. It's because Makgopa is out wide and he's taking on his man, leaving him for dead, and he's able to provide the assist, right, for Urel, and Urel is able to come and occupy that space. So Pirates play differently with either one of these players, and I really hear what you're saying. And judging on how Pirates have played towards the end of the season, where it is more defensive, or it's less
mob justice.
It's less mob justice than it has been. That beautiful associative play in that final third, you're not seeing that all that much anymore. And if that is the game, you go with Makgopa, right? Because he can give you so much more in the overall game. Because where Mabasa shines is when Pirates are purring, where they are having those combinations in the wide areas or in the central areas, where Dino is underlapping or overlapping and is adding bodies in that front line, or the same thing you have with Hoto, or where you have Utito as well, who looks a bit of color at the moment. But when those things were happening, when those things are happening with Pirates, and as I'm saying, when they're at their fluid best, what then tends to happen is we just need a guy in the box, because we'll do the work, right? The other forwards and the midfielders, we will do the work, and we'll shift through the gears, and we'll pass through, play through the teams. And what then we need is, what's going to happen is that we are going to put a ball into the box, and we need a finisher to be there to score the goal. And in that instance, 10 out of 10 times, Mabasa is the guy you go with. And I want to see more of that from Pirates. I think the way that they're going to score a goal is if they have not even like 10 occasions or of that in the game, like 2 of them.
And you need someone clinical.
You just need someone clinical, because you do need a goal, right? The way that Pyramids played, they came out to play against Pirates at FNB. I imagine they're just going to double down in that second leg, especially when you consider that in the quarterfinals, they scored 4 past their opponent, right? And that's the way they play. And the assumption on my end is that they're going to score a goal. And they scored 2 goals at FNB, but ruled offside. So one of those is not that at home, then you have to score as Orlando Pirates. And I feel that is something that's going to be required of Pirates. And just generally as well, I do favor Mabasa. But if what is going to happen is what we've seen again, and the likelihood is that the evidence suggests that that's what we're going to see in the second leg and in the final in the Nedbank Cup and the remaining games in the PSL, that we're going to see the Pirates that is more defensively stout. And if that is going to happen, Makgopa is your guy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just imagining the conditions or how the game's going to play out. We're going to be defensive, and chances are when we play that kind of football, we don't, as you said, we don't create those chances. And you get to then see Mbata shoot from afar, Maswanga shoot from afar, Rele shoot from afar, and Nkota will always take a chance, right? And in those situations, Jay, then Mabasa's not in the game because he's never there facilitating for those kind of plays. But Makgopa, if there's no supply, he's fine because he'll go out and graft, whether he's dueling in the air, whether he's pressing, but he's fine playing that way. That's why to him, it was nothing to vacate that area that Mfokeng occupied against Sundowns because, well, the ball is there to be won. Whereas Mabasa's thinking to himself, I need to be in the box to receive it. But if you're playing a team that does not allow those balls to reach you, then you're a bit of a liability. And that is the argument, and that's the conversation. That what do you do? What's going to happen on the day? So predicting what's going to happen, I think that's one guy that if we choose Makgopa, he won't be out of the game if things don't go your way. But if the game is as open as Pyramids make it and we then decide to play as well, fight fire with fire, which is the football I like to watch, but I'm aware that maybe we won't go that direction, I'd still go with Makgopa.
I just can't help, Chuck, but recall the game away to Abidjan where Makgopa had an opportunity to shoot a goal and he decided to pass. And then on another occasion where he shot, it was nowhere near. In the most recent game that we watched in the Nedbank Cup semi-final when we were at the stadium, there's a shot he took and you're like,
scuffed.
Your striking ability as your ball striking as a striker and someone who's supposed to be a goal scorer is not what it should be. And as great, and I really do mean great, as he does everything else, that really turns me off in terms of watching a striker. It's like, that's my striker. Whereas I see Mabasa. He'll take a pass with his right foot and he'll finish with his left. He doesn't have to think twice about it. He's so clinical in that box. And yes, he's limited outside the box, right? But in my mind, the other players, that's their jobs, right? Like you do your jobs as the other forwards, as the wingers, as the midfielders, and I'll do my job. So that's the conundrum.
They take the pressure differently because when Makgopa is outside the box, he thrives. He's happy to be pressing,
really
happy to be playing the 1-2s. And I mean, if you think about that pass to Rele, it was pinpoint, it was well weighted. That's because he doesn't have the pressure to be in that box and finish himself, which is what I think is going to happen in terms of, I don't think our strikers are going to be getting on the ball that often in the box. But if they do, I do agree with you that Mabasa is the better player. Speaking about strikers and scoring, Liverpool condemned Leicester to relegation because Trent, as a defender, scored that goal, magical goal. But his celebration, Jay, and how he looked in that moment was contrary to many reports that we've believed in terms of Trent is going to leave Liverpool for Real Madrid. Do you think, Jay, in terms of what he looked like in those moments and the passion and the showings of that particular moment, that he just might make a U-turn and things are not necessarily signed and confirmed that he's going to Real Madrid? He might yet still change his mind and sign an extension with the Reds?
First of all, Leicester being relegated, right? You remember a few seasons ago, and Leicester were finishing back-to-back fifth places and challenging for Champions League spots. And Arsenal were finishing in 8th place. And everybody's like, oh, maybe it's time for Leicester to take over from Arsenal in the Big Six. Like, yes, Arsenal should be replaced and put out of the Big Six. This is the last time I'll bring it up. But I just wanted to zero in on that, especially when you see Spurs and United struggling as they are. Now where the conversation is like, oh, maybe we need new members in the Big Six.
This is 50 saying, what did he say F me for? Because Singen have United.
Just saying, Chuck.
Yeah.
But where Trent is concerned, when I saw him come on and score that goal and the celebration, I thought to myself, man, if this man leaves at the end of the season, like, what was all of that for? Like, it's gonna be hella funny for me. Like, you did all of that, and what was that? Like, were you having a go at your fans who feel as though that you are betraying them by leaving for nothing, whereas you have previously said that you are Scouts through and through, Liverpool red through and through, and you have dreams of emulating SDVG, spending your entire career, well, if we don't count his time in America, that is SDVG, but your whole peak years at Liverpool and ending up as the captain, are you having a go at those fans, or is that you say like you venting out a frustration whereby what's actually going to happen is I'm going to stay and all of this is for nothing? But if you're going to stay in a week, a few weeks where Liverpool have announced the extensions of Mo Salah and Van Dijk, surely they would have announced an extension of Trent as well, right? Because they were working on those deals the entirety of the season around the same times, and they concluded them around the same times. So I don't think so, Chuck. I don't think this is a sign that he is going to pull a Wolf of Wall Street and I'm not going anywhere. In the vein that Stevie G did after winning the 2005 Champions League final, where he was slated and very close to going to Chelsea, but then the euphoria of winning the Champions League with his beloved Reds made him change his mind. And even subsequently, when Real Madrid came calling, he still decided to stay with Liverpool. So that's the question, right? Is Trent coming on after missing some weeks due to injury, winning the game and putting Liverpool on the verge of winning a second Premier League title in 5 seasons, going to be enough to cause a U-turn, as we believe that he already has a decision in place, or has made a decision that he's going to Real Madrid? I don't think so. And also, Chuck, I don't think he should stay at Liverpool.
Yeah. I mean, when I was with Stevie G, he won the Champions League, and based on what was literally what we were speaking about last week in terms of, but he had to still finish his story. He was still chasing the league title, which he didn't. Unfortunately, he's the guy who had the slip, ironically. But I think there was still some business to be done there. But Trent has won the Champions League, has won the league, has won just about everything, right? Have they won the Carabao?
They've won everything. They won everything under Klopp. So winning the league, a second league title in 5 seasons. Literally, what's that going to mean is that in the time that Manchester City have been farmers in this league, the times that they haven't won the league, Liverpool have won it.
And Trent was there.
And Trent was there. Like for Liverpool, Chuck, who when they won their first league was the first in 30 or 33 seasons, whatever the case may be. 2 Premier League titles. That's like the 13 that Manchester United had under Sir Alex, because it's a rare thing. And Trent, having won everything, would have then even doubled down on league titles, which is why I say I don't think you should stay. Go have an adventure in Spain. You've done everything at Liverpool. Go see what is out there.
Yeah, so I think the very same thing, Jay, in terms of because he's done everything. You've given the team what they want, right? It's not like you left mid-season in terms of we were chasing for the league, we were so close, we were going to build something great, and then you left. No. We did take the Champions League box, the League box, the FA Cup, the Carabao. What should I stay for? Because I've given you the best of my football. Except for, Jay, the entirety of this season, we've heard Mo Salah get on every mic saying, it's probably my last derby, it's probably my last Watuati, goodbye, farewell. Then there's a picture and videos of him sitting on the throne, he signed the extension. You're like, what's happened here? So footballers and what they say on the mic, or rather what we hear from reports on social media, the press, YouTube, wherever, it's very deceptive in terms of what then finally happens as the actual final result. So I don't know, Jay. Maybe that was then to say, well, maybe he's staying. I can't give reason for why he should versus going to Real Madrid, right? Because they look like they've built a side where the age profile is very right, and he just slots in on the right wing or right fullback space, and then they just play that football because he's going to be another maestro added to what they're building yet again as another version of the Galacticos. But I cannot predict it. With what I've seen, with Van Dijk was a bit more straightforward because he was not really as vocal. You didn't see much about his contract situation, and he's then signed, which we were expecting to happen. I was convinced Mo Salah is going. I was just saying if Mo Salah doesn't get what he wants, he's their best player, they don't give him the money and what he's worth, he should go. I don't know who bent the knee. I don't know who compromised, but they found a middle ground and he signed the contract. I don't know what Trent is after. I don't know if it's financial or does he want glory elsewhere, but it seems to me, as what I put up first and foremost, that he wanted to win things and be great. You can't look at you can't belittle what he's done for Liverpool. I think you look at his stint there and you're like, well, his boyhood club, he's come through the ranks, he's come through the system, he's won trophies, he's been the darling, he's been a past master at Liverpool. What more do you want from Trent in terms of what more can he do to elevate, right? That's if they win like 5 other leagues, then you're great. But in terms of what's realistic and the teams that are out there and how people are improving, this is like a very good run for Liverpool. So I am not quite convinced, Jay, in terms of will he actually stay? But there could be a twist. There could yet still be a twist.
You know what? I do empathize with Liverpool fans in terms of if you're gonna leave, it would have been great for us to get a fee for you. You know, and Trent being Trent, when you think Achraf Hakimi went for 80 million from Inter Milan to PSG, you imagine those numbers are more for Trent, right? Which a Liverpool team who are, the way they manage their money is not like the old rich clubs. That would have come in handy, you know. But we don't know what happened in negotiations, why his contract was allowed to run down to a point where he's going to leave on a free. We don't know if on the side of Liverpool the negotiations weren't what they were supposed to be, or if Trent was like leading them on and then dropped them in the last moments. We'll find out if he does leave. When he does leave, we imagine he'll do an interview and he'll let us into his confidence in terms of what happened there and when he made the decision. But it would be nice for Liverpool and their fans okay, Trent has done this, and then he says farewell. It's like, we don't bemoan him that, but would it be we get like 100 million for him, and everybody, it's happy days. It's him living for free. That feels like a gut punch.
Do you think, Jay, lastly before we move on, do you think Real Madrid would have still maintained their appetite had there been a fee like 50, 60 attached to his name? Do you think they still go for him versus when he's free? Because I think maybe some players have this in their negotiation that if I do sign, I need to be able to leave on a particular fee if I want to go out. Because if you priced me at 100 million, I might not move. Do you think a Real Madrid would have had the same appetite had they had to pay 50 for him?
I do think so. Real Madrid were willing to pay 200 million for Mbappe in 6 months to go in his contract.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think either a season to go, but he was on the verge of becoming a free agent, and they wanted to secure that, you know, without any leverage from the PSG side contractually. But Real Madrid was still willing to part ways with that money because they had identified Mbappe and they desperately wanted him. And I think they would have paid a fee for Trent because they do need a right back, you know, and that's the one that they covered. But as Real Madrid do, they got Mbappe for free, and now they're about to get Trent for free as well. I mean, it's not completely free because there's going to be a very healthy signing on bonus, and that is also the bonus you get for running down your contract, right? Yeah. Chuck, a man who is also a virtuoso, put on a virtuoso performance in the URC against Connacht, Sacha Feinberg-Mngomezulu. You don't know this because you are not a reader of Harry Potter, but I know this. So, like, let me tell you something. Yeah. You know, Albus Dumbledore, like, was thought in the series to be the greatest wizard. Mm-hmm. He was said when he was still in school, a quote about him was that his professors had observed him do things with a wand they'd never seen before. Mm-hmm. And that performance from Sasha and other things is done on a rugby field, like, they give you that sense of he does things with the rugby in his hand and at his feet that we've never seen before. And so I want to ask this question, Chuck. Is Sacha Feinberg-Mngomezulu on a trajectory to be the GOAT, or is it still too early to tell?
How do I answer this? Because it's very early in his career, right? But if he's going to be doing what he did on the weekend, score a hat-trick with that magic pass, get an assist from behind pass the ball from behind the hand, back of the hand. If that's the kind of rugby that he's going to be playing week in, week out, they didn't crown him, right? But then he's also had injuries. He's also had games where those things have not come off. Because we've seen in the Springbok jersey where you're like, oh, I see what you were trying to do right there. And it hasn't come off all the time. But if he's going to replicate, Jay, 4 out of every 10 outings, those kind of things, then he's well on his way, Jay, because those tries were magical. There's dummies, there's chips and chases, and you're just seeing the game on a different level. It's what the Dan Carters were. It's what the Sonny Bill Williams are. Where you're like, we used to play a particular way of rugby until this guy did it this way. It's what Rassie is currently in terms of world rugby, that he sees things differently that other managers or other coaches aren't seeing. So if he's going to do that, Jay, more consistently, and if he's going to be winning games for the Stormers single-handedly, because remember, the Stormers are a big franchise in South Africa, and they definitely are big boys when they come to continental competitions, whether it's Super Rugby, whether you're talking about the URC where we are currently, or whether you're just playing about European challenge, but the continental competition in Europe where they are as well. If he's going to do that on that stage very often and consistently, then he has to be on the trajectory to be the coach here, because No one does that. No one does that rugby. I mean, it's what we saw when we saw Dupont for the first time. You're like, oh, I see why there's so much noise. I see why he's held in such great esteem, because he does that on the pitch. He dictates everything, and everything goes well according to his tune. But also I fear, Jay, in terms of injury concerns, because while he's also been new, he's been injured a lot of late. And with rugby, you can't necessarily avoid injury. It's a full contact sports. It's a collision sports. That's what happens. And so if you can avoid that, Jay, then I have to give a big tick and say, well on his way.
So since his return from injury, he literally has been, I want to say he's literally been the man of the match in every match he's played. And he's been the best player on the field each time. So in order to become the GOAT, right, and maybe speaking in a Springbok context, maybe also in terms of like historically in world rugby, two things need to happen, right? You need to perform at a high level, but not just a high level. At a level maybe we've not seen many people, if any, do before. And then you need to maintain that. That's where the injury concerns come in, right? So if we are assuming for health throughout his career, then the thing that we need to see is the virtuoso performances on a regular basis. And as I'm saying, since he's returned from injury, what he's shown it's a small sample size, is that every time he steps onto the rugby field, he's the best player on the field. And it's not just the fact that he's doing the things that a fly half does, because it's very easy to be the best player as a fly half. That is the sexiest position in rugby, right? Which is also an advantage in terms of trying to go down a path that ends with you being the GOAT, because you have so much control of matches. And if you are just a very good player who plays fly half, then you're going to be one of the very best players ever, because the position lends itself for that. And that's an advantage for a Sacha. But at the same time, Chuck, because we will get to see you dictate play and run games as often from that position, if he then delivers the kind of performances again as we saw against Connacht, where he is scoring a hat-trick, but he's doing spin moves where it looks like somebody is controlling him with a PlayStation controller. He's throwing passes from the back of his hand where you can't even tell where did the pace and the spin come from, because there's hardly any movement from his wrist or his elbow. Like you're watching it, and you're seeing it, but you can't believe it, right? And it's not only magic, because that can be Harlem Globetrotter stuff, right?
Yeah.
I think of someone like a Carlos Spencer from New Zealand. Carlos Spencer was that guy. Like he was, now you see it, now you don't. But he wasn't Andrew Mertens, and he wasn't Dan Carter, because he wasn't consistent. And there was a lot more of his game centered around those things, as opposed to go and win us the game as the fly half. Whereas you compare it to a Dan Carter will give you like 80+% from the kicking tee, but he will give you the performances ball in hand, and bringing forwards and the backs and making everybody play, where it makes you ooh and ah. You know, everybody still speaks about that second test in 2005 against the Lions, and I watched that, and Dan Carter is my favorite player of all time. And I watched Dan Carter and it's like, I love this. Like, I know he's from New Zealand, but like every time I watch that man on a rugby field, and even after the injuries and coming back in his last hurrah in the 2015 World Cup, he was still Dan Carter, right? And he was signing off as, yeah, my name is in the hat in terms of GOAT. I think particularly from a South African standpoint, Sacha is the closest thing to a Dan Carter that I've seen. And the thing about the performance, and the thing when he does the magic, right, it comes naturally. He's not showboating. But what you are actually seeing is like, this dude is playing a different game to everybody else. He is playing at a level that he's like a big kid amongst like smaller kids. And you are looking at it and you're like, these are other professionals, and he's taking the mickey out of these guys, and that's not what he's trying to do, right? Because it ends with points on the board. It ends with his team winning. And then on the other side is the question is, okay, he can do that offensively, but can he kick? Yes, he can kick. And he just needs to make sure that he's consistently at that 75-80%. And can he defend? Yes, the boy has size. You don't have to hide him in defense. He can defend his channel quite well.
Marcus Smith.
Somebody like that, you know. So when you put all those things together, that he's got the prototypical build where you can just play him as a 10. You don't have to worry about him guys running at his channel, and he's gonna put points on the board. We also saw him deliver some drop kicks not too long ago when he assessed the situation that we keep being in an offensive position, but we're not coming away with points. Take matters into my own hand. He knows how to read the game, and he's giving you those drop kicks. And then as we're saying, whether it's broken field or it is a straight line in front of you, he's able to poke holes into the defensive line, and it ends with his team scoring points. Yeah, if he stays healthy, he is well on his way to becoming the GOAT, Chuck.
I mean, I know we're talking about most recent performances, right? And as you said, highlighting specifically since he's come back from injury. But when Rassie put him in the deep end in the Rugby Championship, he took to it like a duck to water against New Zealand, against
his
Australia,
first actual
against
international
Argentina.
rugby was slotting the 50-yarder.
Yeah. And they were like, oh, okay, that's what he does.
That's who he is.
So well acclimatized to the very, very highest level in terms of the pressure test and also producing that magic. And this is what players like maybe a Finn Russell chase, that I've got the flair, but can I produce? And fortunately for Sacha, he's in a good team, the Stormers, good team, the Springboks. I don't know what will happen on Finn Russell, because Scotland are decent, but will they ever make any real noise? And if they do, then obviously he then comes into the conversation. But bring it back to Sacha, I think so far, very, very magical. Someone who's had a magical career as well, Jay, having run under 10 seconds, having run his 100 meters sub 10 seconds 97 times. That's crazy. The next guy has only done so 56 times, which is Justin Gatlin, if I'm not mistaken. He says, this is Asafa Powell, by the way, that I'm talking about. He says that if I had the chance, I would not have run for Jamaica. I would have chosen another nation because of how they've treated me and how they've not supported me along the way in terms of my career. And he says if his children do then continue to do track and field and run, he'll make sure that they either go to Ghana or either they represent Ghana or they represent Canada. So, Jay, do you think someone who speaks like that at the end of all of this is a traitor, or do you think because of the reasons that he stated, it's justified?
So, Asafa Powell responded to videos of his children running in their primary school meets. You know, by the way, Shalian Fraser Price, every single year she's out there like
no mercy,
just like putting the sword into these players. I absolutely and she's warming up. So I was like, man, what a menace! Like, why are you warming up right now for these folk who work behind the desk, like in their daily lives? Oh man, but. So from those videos and the comments in the videos, because of course Asafa Powell's children that are the future's bright, you know, and he kind of kicked everybody in the you know what, like slow your roll, guys.
Yeah.
Don't get so excited unless you're getting excited for them as individuals. But in terms of the future of Jamaican sprinting, nah. The likelihood is that if my kids do progress to becoming world-class athletes, they're not going to represent Jamaica. And of course, that would have hurt the Islanders, you know, listening to that. But then, Chuck, you know me, like I've told you this before that
overrated.
representing your country and being patriotic is if there's a war and you strap on the guns and whatever the case may be, and you go on the front lines to defend your country. That's being patriotic. Sports can be. Don't get me wrong, but where the issue is, and Asafa Powell is pointing to this, is that administratively, it's terrible. It's absolutely bad. Like, and he speaks from experience, right? That the support wasn't there, and you think of his international teammate, Blake.
Yeah,
he said the same thing. That I'm celebrated in Europe, in Jamaica. It's as though I'm not the 2011 world champion. It's as though I'm not the second fastest man ever in both the 100 and the 200. You could swear that I've never done anything for this island, for this country, you know? And someone might look at that and say, you spoiled, or you want to be praised. But what he's speaking to is the fact that just a recognition that I get from other countries, this prophet is without honor in his hometown, you know? And from an Asafa Powell who like goes off of his experiences, as a parent, you want better for your kids, right? If you've gone through some things, you want to protect them from going through the same things. And from where he's sitting, from where he's standing, from where he's observing Jamaican athletics, regardless of the success of the athletes, what he says, it had nothing, it had more to do with the individuals than it did with the organization themselves. And that's not something I would want for my kids. And if I could do it again, I'd do differently. And this is my position, that because it's a job at the end of the day, especially when you're talking about like sprinting, right? When you're like the top of the game is still internationally. It is the world champs. It is the Olympics. I mean, you saw, for example, at the Olympics, Sebco introduced $50,000 prizes for the winners, and this is the same with the World Championships. So if I'm going to be doing my job where it's not just I'm just strapping on the colors and it's just pride, but this is my livelihood, I want the conditions to be as conducive to my success as they can be. And if that means not running under this flag, it does not mean that I'm no longer Jamaican or whatever nation I come from. I'm not patriotic or feel deeply for the people and the land. But in terms of this job, there are better conditions to do it under and greater success to be garnered elsewhere. Take me there.
I mean, I think to myself, if we think of the context of football or rugby, where club football is what you primarily do, and then you then go play for and represent your country. If that was the situation, then I'd say, come on, Asafa, is it really that bad? Because you get a regular paycheck, you get that regular support, you get a fully fledged career in that particular club, and then you then go represent your country. That's why players like who was Aubameyang, they also go represent Gabon. I think it's Gabonese. While playing for Dortmund and Arsenal and having the time of his life, and then you'll sleep at airports and complain. But it wasn't that much in terms of, it was just a bad week. It was just a bad 2 weeks. But also I'm getting in touch with my roots because, I don't live there as well. I live in Europe, I work in Europe, and I'm well off, I'm healthy, I'm good. Versus you grew up there, this is all you know, and at the very height, these are the people who are controlling where my career goes, or rather these are the people who are aiding or not aiding where my career goes. And with sprinting, like you said, at the very highest level is international. And then when you think to yourself, we could have been better this time, except for someone didn't send an email. Someone didn't send the right coaches. Someone didn't sign a sponsorship deal. We didn't get the flights to go to wherever. You're like, is it really worth doing? Because sometimes international value, as you said, does not hold that much weight, because someone like a Matty Cash can say, England is full. Let me be Polish. And all of a sudden he's Polish. And people just switch chairs like that. But I think to myself also, Jay, in terms of, I don't know how well it's gone for Samuel Eto'o, but he's been the one who's been complaining, and he's since then ascended to then say, I want to have a hand in what's gone wrong in Cameroonian football. I want to change things around there. I don't know if Asafa Powell has an appetite for that, but isn't that how you bring about change? Instead of saying everything is bad and therefore let's not go there, don't you want to then change the experiences of others because you have seen what you've gone through, and then make sure that everyone who's behind you has a better experience? Not to say that he has to, because oftentimes you can't make that argument, because not to say that once you've done running, you must then go to be a board member or an executive in terms of your country's affairs when it comes to sports or athletics. He might not want to do that, because he's then stated that no one wants to be, no athlete wants to retire and then work a 9-to-5 job. And I'm like, Asafa, careers are very short when it comes to athletics. Is that realistic? But I get it as well, because you can have a chance to be really paid and be well off and be comfortable because of what you've done in your prime years. But Jay,
so what I think what he meant by that, Chuck, is that in his career, if the option was running for Jamaica or retiring, and I don't want to do that. If my other option is retiring, and if that's going to be the option put up for my kids, no. As an athlete, you want to continue being an athlete, and if the pathway to doing that is running for another country, let's do that rather. Okay.
I understand that better now. But I think, Jay, if it's not working, you can't force it to work, because, I mean, how often do we advocate and fight for Banyana in terms of, if only there was a professional league, if only Danny Joran wasn't shady with their money and was upfront. There's only so much you can do in terms of fighting for certain things, So I think, Jay, I would have preferred that he fights and tries to change the condition of his country, because there's something about, I come from this place, these are the people that I identify with, and when I go up there, they're like, oh, there's one of our own. But it's something else as well when you're like, do I really still want to be known as part of them, because they're not treating me well? And whenever we go into international places, the guys who are unprofessional eat. The guys who are never there on time, the guys who are never signing things and contracts and things are always amiss, it's us. Then you tend to say to yourself, maybe I don't want to be a part of that. So I do understand him. But I don't know, man. Like I said, it's
So, Chuck, my final thing on this would be this, right? That the indictment by Powell or Blake, or even a Leon Bailey who stepped away from the Jamaican national team, right? Or even if you think about Benny McCarthy when he was playing, and we've heard his teammates who played with him in the national team. Remember how the reports were like Benny's always causing strife whenever he's in camp with Bafana Bafana. But then after the fact, like after their careers, when Benny says, I didn't need the money. I was not being greedy because I needed the money from Safa. But I was trying to help my brothers get taken care of, because I play in Europe, I play in England, whatever the case may be. Their situations are different. So yes, I'm going to fight for that. And the indictment is not against the country. It's not against the flag. It's not against the people. It's against the administration. Like that particular board that governs this part of the national agenda, right? Because not saying, oh man, I'm tired of this country. And this is my position as well. Like if I were a professional athlete, someone in Aubameyang's situation or whoever, when you see, man, if I play for an African nation, like I'm sleeping at airports, if I take the decision to play for another country because like they're better organized, this is not me saying I want to dissociate myself with my country. I am no longer that. Absolutely no longer that.
Do you think that's communicated clearly? Because, Jay, it's not like
that's the issue, right?
Yeah, because you don't become a neutral athlete. You're picking up a different flag. And we want to say, so Jay is ashamed of us. That's
because you can't be a neutral athlete. That's the thing. And that's why I'm saying, Oguti, where with athletics, because there are prizes to be won by being at the Olympics, being at the World Championships, and you can't be there unless you're under a particular flag, And as I'm saying, unfortunately, what it looks like, you look like a defector, and you look like somebody who's turned their backs on the country and who is a traitor, which is what we're asking, But I don't think that's the case, because then, like in Asafa Powell, he lives in Jamaica and is in his kids' school there, And even if you make the decision, Chuck, as so many expats have, to go to other countries for what they deem to be better situations for work, it doesn't mean you don't love your country anymore, except for certain people from the country that we are from. Because when you get that side and you start bad-mouthing the entire country, then you have a sinister agenda, But as I'm saying, where athletics, where sport is concerned, if the decision is on the basis that it is hard and borderline abusive to represent the country, because what that means is actually I'm representing this board, then if there's another option for me to take, I'm going to take that. If all things being equal, I'd still run for the country. It's not me chasing, and there are some people who just like do that where they turn their backs on their countries because man, it's just more glamorous to be associated with another country. But in a situation like what Powell does outline, that it's a terrible experience to run for the country, because what you're actually doing is representing these people who are overseeing your career. Then I don't want that for my kids. And if I could do it all over again, I wouldn't choose that for myself. And I get that.
I mean, I hear your argument. I'm just thinking to myself, how do you not look like a traitor? Because like you say with the Benny McCarthy example, for the longest time, up until you got the platform to speak, no one's there to change that narrative. And so, I mean, I support the idea that do better for your kids in terms of what you've experienced. But we can't then say, Jay is now running for Botswana, and that's fine. We don't know the ins and outs of it. And so I don't know how I conclude this matter, because he will be looked upon as a traitor. I
tell you all the time, if Sky or ESPN come calling, like, you'll be sitting here with somebody else calling it two up front. And ain't nothing against you, my boy. It's just like, this is what is out there. And I'll be there, like, just want to shout out my boy Chuck, holding it down, doing his thing.
See, traitor.
Ain't a guy, Chuck.
And everyone who's followed this channel, that's how I say, Jay left for because that's what happens whenever you get to the Sky and whatever. That's what I'm saying. Jay sold out.
Let it be known,
they don't know this.
Let it be known that if Sky or ESPN or there's a version,
the zone,
or whoever amongst like the big players, if they come for you, I'm gonna be here like with a tear and some flowers and a gift, like, go well, Chuck. I wish you the best. That's what I would do. I wouldn't think that you are being Judas up in here. I'd be like, you know what? Your ship has come. And
Yeah, this is
Bon
between
voyage.
this is between the two of us. Our viewers and subscribers. So, mind you, why are we watching? Because that nigga sold out.
and yeah, one of that, and that is why it's our job to educate the masses. So and that's the narrative, right? You have to, which is why Asafa Powell did explain that this is why it's not just a matter of man, I don't like Jamaica. Like I think my kids are better off running for Canada. I mean, he even brought Ghana into the equation, right? That he doesn't have experiences with either Canada or Ghana, but in his mind, it feels as if anything is better than this. And if there's an option for something other than what I've experienced, because it's been that terrible, I'll take that. And that's the context. That is the context. And under that context, I do feel it's justified. You've come to the end of Two Up Front. Thank you for being with us until this point right here. If you are new here or you're returning and you've not done so, please do press the subscribe button. Please do like and share the videos far and wide. And also do continue the conversation with us in the comments. We absolutely love hearing from you. And the conversation can also continue outside of YouTube. You can find us on all social media platforms. It is at Two Upfront Pod, and you can find me at J_Mzulu, and you can find Chuck at Chuck2Up. From myself, Jay, I'm outie.
The story is not yet finished. Sundowns, Pirates, and Stellies continue to play in Africa, and they hope to win because the story is not finished. Just like we are not finished, we'll be here next week and the week after in perpetuity, unless Jay leaves for Sky. This is Chuck, and I'm out.